And welcome to Picks on Politics, everybody. I'm Dan Manarino. And as the Mamdani administration takes shape, his appointees look to make their own mark in their new roles as well. We've been introducing them to you. Once again, there's a new leader now for the FDNY. Mayor Zohran Mamdani naming Lillian Bonsignore the city's fire commissioner. Now, she is the 37th commissioner of the department, a career EMT. Bonsignore also served as chief of EMS operations from 2019 to 2022, as she is the first uniformed woman to hold the position. And today, she's going on the record. And the commissioner is joining me now. Commissioner, great to have you here, and congratulations on the appointment.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let me talk to you, right, because obviously you've been involved in the first responder world for quite some time, right?
I have, yes, I have.
Over 30 years. Now, you're going to hear this a lot, right? The complaints from people who said, well, now we have another fire commissioner who has never been a firefighter, but your predecessors in the past haven't had FDNY experience within the actual being a firefighter. What do you say to that criticism and concern?
I think it's just simply absurd. You know, I'm the 37th fire commissioner in 160 years of the fire department, and 2/3 of the fire commissioners had no firefighting experience. 31-year veteran of the fire department. I've worked and loved this department my entire adult life, and I've led EMS through a global pandemic and was on the ground during the World Trade Center attacks. I think people just don't understand that a commissioner's job is not to fight fires. The greatest duty of a commissioner is not to command the fire, but to empower and protect the hands that fight it, right? So that means that I'm here to support the EMTs, the paramedics, the firefighters, and civilians who really do the hard work in the fire department. I'm not there to stand there and put out fires. Right.
If there's a 5-alarm fire, which there's been a few of in the beginning of this year, right, that got some high attention. The fire commissioner isn't the one setting up shop saying, okay, here's what's going to happen.
That's correct. And I don't think a lot of people understand. Right. We're a very large fire department, and we're led primarily by a civilian position. Even if I were a firefighter in the past, I wouldn't be fighting fires in this role. None of them have. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a different structure, I think, for people to understand. But, you know, we're here to do this job together. We have an extraordinary leadership team in operations that have well over 500 years of collective experience, and they're going to continue to do great jobs.
You mentioned your time in EMS, right, and leading the EMS Bureau through COVID-19, something that the mayor really highlighted when he named you as the commissioner. And you have a lot of experience in that world. How do you bring that now to this role as commissioner?
Well, I was only retired 3 years, so I'm barely gone. So, you know, running EMS or leading EMS in New York City is a very big job in itself. And we were faced with a global pandemic, one that nobody's ever seen in our lifetime. So, you know, we do have a lot of relationships that have already been developed as far as with City Hall and politicians and all the other folks, all our agency partners. And yes, there's a new administration, but there's still a lot of experience left there. And I'm able to, you know, assign my experience and understand the pulse and the culture of this job because I've lived it for my entire adult life. So I think what I bring is a deep understanding of the problems and concerns that the fire department are facing and a way to translate that in a firsthand way.
Yeah, and speaking of EMS, they're currently working without a contract, right? And your predecessor wrote in an op-ed on his way out that while the FDNY doesn't control EMS pay, that they deserve a monumental raise. And that is the world you come from. So do you believe that they do deserve a raise, and how do you get them to a contract?
Yeah, you know, EMS is critical in our city. They protect and save lives for a living. Over 1.6 million runs a year, and they deserve to be paid fairly. I can say that I wholeheartedly support parity. And, you know, although the commissioner doesn't sit at the bargaining table, I'm comfortable saying that the time has come to start paying our emergency medical professionals a fair and living wage. I think, you know, we're in crisis right now, and if we don't take an opportunity to fix this problem, EMS will collapse at some point, and that is no good for anybody, especially New Yorkers.
Yeah, I think it's important to also for people to understand, for me who may not know the roles, the commissioner doesn't set the pay for EMS. That's a union and a contract negotiation that goes through the city offices.
That's correct.
And so let me talk about, while we're discussing EMS, ambulance response times has really been an issue. In 2025, it was 11.5 minutes, and the union is placing the blame on low staffing levels, and we're talking about what would happen about a collapse if they didn't get a raise. So how how do you get those numbers for response times down and the numbers of EMS up?
That's a really great question and a big question. Response times are led by lots of different things. Staffing is certainly one of those things, but public education also is a really critical piece of this. So we're going to be engaging in some public education campaigns. Like I said, our call volume is over 1.6 million a year, and it is overwhelming. You know, it is a lot to respond to in our city. So we're going to be talking about how we should best use 911 as a resource in our growing city. And I think when people start to understand that, we could start cutting down maybe on some of those calls and encouraging people to use urgent care centers for non-emergencies, maybe their doctor or telemedicine. Yeah. And I think that is good for everybody, including the patient who ends up sitting in an emergency room for quite some time. So, you know, we'll start talking to the public and making sure that we can make it very clear and offer them opportunity to do other things. And certainly, you know, work with our partners in the hospitals to get our ambulances out sooner. Lots of different factors lead into response times, but we're on it. It is a priority for us.
But you want to see those obviously come down.
Absolutely. You know, our job is to save lives for a living, so we want to get to you as very quickly as we can. But we need to be going to those high priority, life-threatening emergencies in order to make that real difference.
You know, and we're also talking about this during a time, or taping this interview, where it's day 5 of a historic nurses strike. And obviously you work hand in hand with so many of these hospitals around the city. What do you want to see happen as an end result here for these nurses who are continuing their on the picket lines?
Well, certainly nurses are a critical piece of our healthcare system in New York City, and we work hand in hand. I do hope that they find their way to the table and end up with an agreement that they can get behind.
You know, you talked about your way around the inner workings of the department, and you were retired for 3 years. You were involved with the FDNY since 1991, but you were in retirement. So do you miss it?
Not yet. I've only been here 2 weeks, so I don't miss retirement yet. I'm really enjoying getting back in the game and talking to all the people and seeing the first responders. I've spent some time in the field going to firehouses and EMS stations and fire department buildings, seeing our civilians. And it's just so energizing because these people are so amazing, and they would put everything on the line just to save a life or protect property. It's just rejuvenating, I guess I could say.
And for you, for the moment, what are you feeling in the moment? Because this is something I'm sure you never thought would actually happen, that you'd be the commissioner. So what does this mean for you?
This is just such an incredible honor. Like I said, I've spent the better part of my entire life loving this fire department and this city. So to be given the opportunity to sit at the helm of this is incredibly important to me, and I want to do a good job for those people who trust me in this position. I think we're going to do great things, and you know, I think to stand behind and support the rescuers that put it all out there for New Yorkers is just something I take as a complete honor.
Commissioner Bonsignore, I appreciate your first interview being right here on Picks and Politics. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much.